The village of Umuako smelled of smoke, sweet palm wine, and roasting meat. It was the day of the New Year festival, a time for giving thanks and asking the earth for a good year. The whole community was gathered in the main square. In the middle of the crowd stood Awele. She was known for two things: her beauty and her immense pride. At 24, she was the richest young woman in the village, thanks to her successful trade in salt and clothes. She wore the most expensive clothes and heavy red coral beads that showed everyone just how important she was. Our wedding offering for the festival was truly grand. A huge, beautifully carved wooden statue covered in shiny bronze. It stood beside her, meant not just to honor the yam god, but to make every other gift look small. She stood tall, sipping her sweet drink, waiting for the humble offerings to arrive so she could enjoy her own superiority. The offerings were almost finished. Then a slow, scraping sound made everyone look up. It was Obi, the old palm wine tapper. Obi was thin and fragile. His clothes were worn and dusty, covered in marks from climbing the palm trees. Though everyone needed his palm wine, Obi himself was poor. He had no farm, only his simple, dangerous craft. He walked with difficulty, leaning on a bent wooden staff. In his hands, he carried his offering. It was a single small calabash. It was old and scratched, the kind of calabash a man might use for a quiet drink alone, not for the village grand feast. Next to Awele's bronze covered statue, Obi's little calabash looked like nothing. A wave of awkward silence passed over the villagers. They felt bad for the old man, but they knew the rule. The gift should reflect the greatness of the harvest. Obi placed his tiny calabash gently on the ground and stood before the piles of offering, looking fragile and exposed. Awele stared at him. A slow, cruel smile grew on her face. This poor small offering insulted the great shoe she had put on. Mazi Ikenna, Awele called out, her voice loud and clear, carrying across the silent square. Is that a gift for the Great Spirit or just a sip of water for a lost rat? A few of her friends laughed nervously. Awele felt stronger, bolder. She pointed a finger at Obi's offering. Look, Umako, she shouted. Obi, the great tapper, offers us one tiny drink. Is our harvest god worth no more than a beggar's leftover? Then she threw her head back and let out laughter. It was loud, beautiful, and utterly heartless. It was the sound of complete disdain meant to crush Obi and shame his simple efforts. The entire crowd froze. They looked down, ashamed for her. Obi slowly stood straight, holding his staff. He did not cry. He didn't look back. He looked straight at Aweli. In his eyes, as the sun set, there was a fierce, strange light. When Obi spoke, his voice was not weak anymore. It was deep and powerful, like thunder starting from far away. Awele, daughter of Nneka, Obi said, his voice quiet but sharp. Today, you did not mock Obi, you mocked the spirit of honest gift and the dignity of all small things. He leaned closer, forcing everyone to listen. I'm leaving this world now. These words are the last I will speak, and they are not for you alone, but for your children. He raised a shaking hand. Since you laughed at the humble offering, your family will become great. You will have wealth, and your children will have success beyond anything you can imagine. But the seed of your arrogant laughter will grow in their hearts. They will get all the world gold, but their joy will always be cold. And the simple, peaceful happiness you denied me today will forever run away from them. They will touch success, but they will never know peace. As soon as the words left his mouth, the power left him. Obi sighed, a quiet sound, and collapsed gently next to his single calabash. He was dead. The feast was over. Everybody stood in shocked silence, understanding that something terrible and permanent had just happened. Awele quickly buried Obi and dismissed the curse as the rambling of the sick man. But the curse began its work, slowly poisoning the spirit of her family. Awele became rich and married the chief's son. Her children were smart and powerful. They were successful in everything, but they were always driven by fear and pride. Her son Ifeanyi became a famous chief, but he never found happiness in his power. He was always worried of being overthrown. He found no comfort in his many victories and died a young, unhappy man. Her daughter Adobe became a legendary trader, but her beauty was cold and her manner was chilling. She was rich and respected, but never smiled. She was terrified of being vulnerable and lived her entire life completely alone. The family was successful, but their laughter was always forced and their gathering were tensed. They were all masters of the world, but prisoners of their own hearts. 3 generations later, the curse landed most heavily on Ngozi, Awele's great granddaughter. Ngozi was a stunting success in the modern world. She had a high rank job in the city and lived in a mansion of glass and marble. She had achieved everything the world said was valuable, but Ngozi lived in a constant state of terror. The cause had turned into a severe, paralyzing anxiety. She couldn't enjoy her success. Every time she got information, she would immediately suffer a panic attack, convinced she was about to be exposed as a fake. Every time she bought something beautiful, she would spend the next week checking the locks on her door, certain it would be stolen. She kept her friends at arm's length, always distrustful, believing their kindness was just a mark of betrayal. The cause was the fear of peace. She was physically exhausted from the constant effort of being successful, yet she was terrified of simply relaxing. When she lay down at night, her mind raced, replaying every mistake she had ever made. She would sometimes wake up in the dark, gasping for air, overwhelmed by the feeling that her perfect life was a fragile paper house, ready to collapse at any second. She started seeing doctors, but they couldn't find a physical cause. You have everything they told her, but she knew the truth. She had something except the simple peace Obi was denied. 1 year, completely broken, Ngozi traveled back to Umako. She found Mazi Chidi, a very old man who remembered the original story. Ngozi confessed her life, the success, the wealth, and the secret. Crushing terror that she felt was watching her every move. Grandmother told me we were blessed, Ngozi whispered, tears in her eyes. Why does a blessing feel like this endless fear? Mazi Chidi told her the real story, not the story of Awele the great trader, but the story of Awele the arrogant mocker and Obi's final powerful word. The curse did not steal your money, Ngozi, Mazi said. It stole your belief in simple good. It made you think that the only way to be safe is to be superior and afraid. Your ancestors tried to buy back the lost joy with bigger gifts, but they were only feeding the pride that caused the cost. Ngozi went back to her room that evening and finally understood. The cause was not magic. It was the mindset that came from hourly laughter, the mindset that humble things were worthless. The next morning, Ngozi did not dress in her expensive clothes. She wore simple faded clothes. She walked to the compound of the current Pamwai Tapa, a kind old man. Did not ask for his finest, most expensive gallon. Instead, she asked him for the first small cup of wine he tapped that morning. The simple portion meant just for his own strength. She poured the wine into a single dented small calabash. It was an offering meant for no one but herself and the spirit of humility. Ngozi walked to the festival square. She ignored the stare of her rich cousins. She walked straight to the offering spot, bent down, and placed the small calabash on the ground. She didn't pray for success, she prayed for humility. She prayed for the ability to value the tiny, ordinary moment of life. A feeling of deep, quiet calm settled over her. The constant raising in her chest slowed. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun and the dust of the earth. And for the first time in years, she felt safe. A gentle smile came to her lips, and then a small, clear laughter escaped her. It was not loud or arrogant. It was soft, pure, and came from a place of genuine, uncalculated peace. It was the exact opposite of the laughter that had started the curse. In that moment, Ngozi broke the cycle. She showed her family that true wealth wasn't in the size of the gift, but in the peace of the heart. The cause had been in the prideful laughter. The freedom was found in the humble joy.